at head coach for the Lady Vols. What can you tell us about what ultimately made this decision for him?
Well, I think, a month ago, I don't think this was happening. I'm not even sure 2 weeks ago this was happening. I just think that this kind of, when Danny White started to, kind of do a deeper dive into, just some things in the program, and I mean, like, just from a recruiting standpoint. I think that's where Coach Harper, she is as sweet a person as you'll ever meet, loves Tennessee, to the end. But I think, her inability to recruit at the high school level, I think really, hurt her. I just think, when you look at, where this program a year from now was going to be, even if you added a few pieces in the portal, I think it was just going to be in a spot where, they're probably going to be making this change a year from now. And I think, Danny decided to go ahead and make the move now. It's never easy, especially when you like the person. And I think everybody on campus loved Kellie. But I think, for the program, for the long-term play here, I think, that was the kind of the decision that was made, and, they decided to go in that direction. I don't think it was any one particular thing, but I do think that the recruiting piece of this was something that probably did hurt her a little bit.
VolQuest Austin Price with us. So her buyout dropped from $3.1 million to $2.2 million yesterday. You guys wrote about that, and VolQuest on 3. That's a lot of money to pay, Austin, to have someone not coach for you anymore. Does that imply to you that Danny White will swing as big as he can? And is there someone like a Lindsey Gottlieb at USC who could be legitimately in the picture for this job?
Sure. Listen, the Lady Vol brand carries so much weight out there. And I know that, the program's not been to a Final Four since Pat and, all that, but it still is arguably the biggest brand in women's basketball in UConn. And so I think with today's transfer portal era, the NIL era, you have a chance to flip things really quick. And if you look at LSU, potentially with Reese being gone, they won't be as good, right? South Carolina loses a lot. Caitlin Clark's gone from Iowa. UConn is still good. They're going to the Final Four, but they're not dominant like they used to be. Like, there's a path here to flip this thing, right? And so I think, making the right hire, goes a long way, to flipping things. And let's face it, if we're sitting here a year from now and the Lady Vols have overhauled the roster, they got a new coach, and they're in the Elite Eight or the Final Four, and they went further than, this previous staff did in their time here, it looks like the right move. And it'll be another, playing chess over checkers moment for Danny White. So, I think, Danny White is one that, he has hired up-and-comers like a Nate Oates when he was at Buffalo, right? And he's made the right hire with Josh Heupel when he was here. Doesn't mean he'll go off the grid and try to go with an up-and-comer like Miller from Grand Canyon. Doesn't mean that he'll go with Gottlieb, who's kind of a hot name out there at USC. I just think he's going to try to find the best fit for the program, and that doesn't necessarily mean staying inside the Lady Vol family. Will they call Carol Lawson? Yeah, maybe. But I think ultimately this is going to be Danny White's decision, and whichever path he decides to go, I think he's earned the right to. At this point, he's basically pulled all the right strings. So, kind of let's see where this thing goes.
Austin Price with us this morning, VolQuest on 3. Austin, when it comes down to the hiring and firings, man, I'm of the mindset when a new AD comes in, Danny White or any other university around the United States, that you got to win quick if you are, a seated coach or you get moved out. Is this a common trend when it comes down to that type of move being made, as far as he's not attached to Kellie or he wasn't attached to Tony, but they win, or Coach Barnes? Is that common?
I don't think he wants to make that. I didn't think he wanted to make this move. In fact, I'm telling you, I think a month ago, I don't think he was planning on making it. I don't think he was planning on making it 2 weeks ago. I think this boiled down to the more he kind of talked to people in and around the program, the more he kind of looked at the overall kind of trajectory of everything. He decided, in the last, 4 or 5 days, this felt like the right move. I don't think this was something where, like if she had won against NC State, made the Sweet 16, and got eliminated, Is she here? I don't know. I mean, again, I think that he did more of a deep dive on the trajectory of everything. So I don't think it's a hard and fast rule, Ramon. Sure. I mean, if you're a sitting coach and a new AD comes in, it behooves you to win. But in some sports, I don't think coaches like football much quicker trigger. Basketball not as quick, but still pretty quick trigger. If you get to the golf team, I don't think anybody's getting rid of Brendan Webb if he finishes 10th in his next golf tournament. I mean, you know what I mean? Like it's a little bit different. And with the Lady Vols, they have 8 national titles, and they have 35 combined SEC championships between the tournament and the regular season. There's such a aura there. You played in a time when Pat Summitt was the coach, Ramon. So, I mean, you understand that Thompson Bowling used to have a lot of crowds that were big, sometimes full. Even when it wasn't full, it was really impressive. In recent years, it's been anything but when you talk about the attendance over there at the Food City Center.
With how the SEC and just college sports in general, the deals that are being made with the big TV networks somewhat set you up for a payday. Austin, if I was to ask you a number that will be able to pull any coach from the West Coast to up north to another SEC team, what is that dollar amount that gets you the coach that you want to have that changes Lady Vols program around?
Well, I think it depends on how big are you going. Let's say you get Dawn Staley. That's going to take you probably $5 million, to pry her away. But I do think, again, you're now two full coaches removed from Pat Summitt. And I do think for a lot of coaches, they think Tennessee, oh, man, I can be the person that kind of re-solidifies Tennessee's greatness. For Josh Heupel, you don't think he takes pride in getting Tennessee to an Orange Bowl, winning 11 games for the first time in 15 years? There's a lot of pride there. There's a lot of pride there for Danny White to be able to say, I'm the AD when all this stuff's going on. But when the Lady Vols kind of become the Lady Vols again, so to speak. I think for coaches out there, I think it's a very attractive job with great facilities. And, it's one that I think, depending on who you go after and depending on how much you want to spend. I mean, do you really want to spend that much money on, I'm talking about the Staley move. And I don't think they're going that route. I'm just using her as the example. Do you want to go that high? I think you can get a quality coach for, half of that. They can flip this thing around and have Tennessee back in the Final Four for the first time in, a while.
Austin Price of VolQuest joining us now on RK Dub. Let's switch it over to the men's side, and just interested to get your take from the game over the weekend with Purdue and just the take overall for this season with Rick Barnes and what he did with his team. Well,
it's not a disappointment. I mean, Tennessee was a 2 seed. That means they were pegged to go to at least the Elite Eight. They did. Their draw was tough. I mean, wouldn't you have loved to have been playing NC State? And I know they're hot and they're going to the Final Four, and congrats to them. Or playing Clemson or playing someone else, right? Purdue, and Zach Edey is such a tough matchup. And the way they call the game, he's good enough without being given, kind of like carte blanche to just throw people around like you're in a WWE cage match. They called him for one foul. The one foul, he pushed the guy out of bounds, extended his arms, and then threw his hands up what? The whistle blew? Again, Zach Edey is good. He's a great player. He doesn't need the additional help. But Tennessee left it all out on the court. Dalton Connect was fantastic. What a way for him to go out. 37 points. The guy was unbelievable. Will be beloved here forever. Whenever his playing career is done, and he's looking like he'll be a lottery pick in the NBA draft when it comes around in June, he'll be able to come back here and, people will hold him in reverence, like they do Ramon Foster. A team that, again, I thought, had a lot of special qualities about it. And now the opportunity is there to kind of go rebuild it. You're not going to have Dalton Connect again. The likelihood that you get somebody that can score like him is very slim. But you can go out and get some quality pieces in the portal and kind of see what you can build around Zakai Ziegler and Meshack and Awaka and Adu and some of these guys, again, providing that they're all back.
And that was kind of my question in terms of what route do you do and go in and continuing to try to get this program to the next level. Because, okay, now you get to the Elite Eight and you're seeing, and you talked about matchups, and that is very true. And sometimes luck plays into it. Anything that Rick Barnes needs to really get out there, whether it be in the transfer portal or the recruiting part of it, that could be able to take them to the next level?
Well, I think you got to have scores that are willing to buy in on the defensive end, because we all know Coach Barnes is going to, he's going to have his defense, the way he likes it. And so, to play for him, you have to play good defense, but you need guys that can put the ball in the hole. That's the one thing you had this year, was you didn't have to draw up everything like you did previous years. You could just kind of, create with Dalton. And again, you're not going to have Dalton. He was a special player. But what you do need is someone who can create enough, and guys on the outside that can knock down open shots. I mean, too many times, Sunday, they just did not knock down wide open shots, and you have to be able to knock those down. You go back to Alabama against Clemson, the whole second half, they buried 3 after 3. Even when Clemson was burying threes, Alabama would answer. And had Purdue made, half of the ones they missed, which were all pretty good looks, that game's not nearly as close. Tennessee hung in there, in part because Purdue, wasn't making outside shots like they made most of the year. And Tennessee, of course, again, outside of Dalton, didn't make a whole lot of outside shots either. So I think it's just about finding your scoring piece into next year, because you know what Z is going to give you, you know what Meshack's going to give you, you know what Awaka is going to give you. Jordan Gainey was, had some really nice hustle plays the last 2 or 3 weeks of the season. You've got to find people that can put it in the hole.
Austin Price of VolQuest on 3 at Austin Priceless, where you find him on Twitter. Switching to the football front, Austin, I've heard a lot about Mike Matthews, Boo Carter, Jacoby Thomas, some of the newcomers that have impressed in spring ball. If there is one newcomer you think has made the biggest impact so far, who would that be?
I think you have to go Lance Hurd. I just think when you put him on the left side, move John Campbell to the right, I just think it just solidifies the edge, and it protects Nico. For me, it's him. I love what Jermod McCoy brings. I think Jacoby Thomas has been a really nice addition on the defensive side. Jackson Moy, defensive line. But Moy, they didn't really have to have. They were so deep on the defensive line. Now, again, it's nice to have him, and he's gonna be a nice player for Tennessee, but he was a necessity. Hurd was a necessity. Getting more athletic at receiver, whether it be with Brazel, Mike Matthews, Braylon Staley, that was a necessity. And I think those are things how you flip the offense back to looking more. I'm not saying they're going to be 22 with all the points, but I think they look more like 22 than 23 with more athleticism and, again, Lance Hurd at left tackle.
Austin, is there one position where you feel like Tennessee will be most open to taking another player? I look specifically at running back with the Cam Seldon injury for the rest of spring. Is that the most likely spot where Tennessee, when the portal opens back up, might do a little shopping?
Maybe. I've got to kind of see where, Tennessee's got to decide where they are coming out of spring. Where do they feel like they are? Do they go after a left guard? Do they go after a running back with Cam Seldon's injury? They have to make that decision. The problem is 2 weeks from now when spring wraps, you're not going to know, Cam's ahead of schedule. You don't know that. It's too soon. And so, I think that there's the potential there to go and look to add a piece or two, just like I think there's the potential for Tennessee to lose a piece or two. Just because I think some kids will move around after spring. I don't think Tennessee's losing anybody that matters. But, you could have a scholarship or two open up. And, again, we'll see. I think it all depends on what Josh Heupel and them want to do. I don't think they want to bring in a body just to bring in a body. Like when Jeremy Pruitt was here and he was forced to bring in Madre London that first year because there was not much running back depth. Like I don't think Coach Heupel wants to do that. But if he can bring in somebody that's going to help and is going to play, I think that's possible. The other thing is you also don't want to stunt Cam Seldon's growth by bringing in someone who's got some experience, is good enough to play, that, isn't just like some, fire starter. So I guess I think it just depends on kind of where they feel like they are and, where they are with like Deshaun Bishop and, several of these running backs like Khalifa Keith. Obviously, you don't know what you have in Peyton Lewis because he's out for spring.
Austin, I'm still just shook. I think Ramon was too. Looked at me. The Madre London drop. There are a lot of names in the Jeremy Pruitt era that I think maybe respectfully to Madre, might be a great guy. Just repress the memory of. That is a name I've not thought of in a very, very, very long time.
Well, I mean, Madre London, Keller Chris, that first year group of grad transfers,
Hey, Austin. Also, if you get a ticket to the national championship game of Final Four, if you see Zach Edey, please tell him keep Rick Barnes' name out of his mouth. That's just from me.
I thought, for a kid that scored 40 points, and obviously is a tremendous college basketball player, I thought his F-bomb drop after the game was a bit much.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you got kids watching. And I don't care. Like you do you, right? I mean, we all have our moments, but to double down and say that stuff about Rick Barnes in the post game, man, quit trying to act like people doubt you.
Right.
Like, people doubted you maybe when you were 15. Quit trying. You can't keep playing that card. You get the benefit of the doubt with every call. They call you differently than they do everybody else. Be the great player you are. And quit looking so. I just thought it was small time. Again, Rick Barnes he's an adult, 1 and 2. I don't think he would ever go down that road because at the end of the day, every school has to make a decision on recruits they go after. Maybe he just wasn't a fit for what Coach Barnes wants to do.
Well, we never overlook our conversations with Austin Price. Tuesdays on Ramon, Kayla, and Will at Austin Priceless, where you follow him on Twitter. Great stuff as always, Austin. Thank you.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Thanks, Austin.
Yes, sir. There's Austin Price with us here this morning. We'll react to some of that. Look around headlines where L'Jarius Sneed talks today. What do we want to hear from him? Let's talk about that next.